I'm out in the backyard, Mom, and I hear all these planes. I wonder where they're going. I wonder how they're doing it, everything else. And someday I'd love to fly. And my mother would just look up and shake her head and smile and never say a word.
When I was 17, I had my second ride, and that was in an open cockpit airplane out at Detroit City Airport. And that clinched it. I've got to learn how to fly.
I was lucky after I graduated from college. The government had a civilian pilot training program to train lots of men because they knew we'd be in the war. And I was lucky to be one of the girls. They let 2 in each class.
Well, we had the same training that the men had, which I think was a 12-month program for them. We did it in 5.5 months.
With us, it was a very individual thing. You were out there by yourself. You were out there to learn how to do everything you could. We learned the Morse code. We took engines apart and put them together again. We learned how to navigate. We learned every aspect of flying.
We had Saturday morning inspection, SMI, and they would actually come with their white gloves, and you stood at attention with your locker open, and they would look the room over and make sure that the cots were tightly made, that your locker was in order, that you were in order. We used to laugh and say, no water in the sink, no, everything had to be in apple pie order. And if you didn't, then you would get a demerit. And if you got enough demerits, if you had a Saturday or a Sunday off, you were not allowed. You had to stay on base. And if you got enough demerits, you were kicked out of the program. So, it was Army life.
We had our orientation. We were assigned to our bays. You shared, there were 6 to a bay and 6 on the other side, and then you shared the same bathroom, which had open showers and maybe, I don't remember, but just some toilets and some bowls to wash your teeth in, and that was it.
All of the men on my base were wonderful. They were so happy that I was there doing a job that one of them might have been, because my job was the same kind of job as being at the front. I was towing targets to live ammunition, and they were shooting at me every day, so nobody really wanted that job.
When I was in gunnery school in Harlingen, we trained as a gunner standing up in the back of a T-6 fighter aircraft shooting a .30 caliber machine gun at a sleeve towed by a B-26, a Martin B-26 bomber by WASP pilots. And I really tip my hat to those ladies, because that wasn't a very safe job, because it got a little wild with those machine guns out of the back of a fighter aircraft.
And that was 7 days a week. Because one time I remember one girl going to our squadron commander in Dallas, and she said, "Can't I please have one day just to get caught up on laundry, everything?" She said, and the squadron commander looked at her and said, "Do the men in the trenches get a day off?" Enough said.
I know we got weathered in California someplace. I've forgotten the field right now, but we had day and night cross countries with those B-25s, and we had a cross country down to Douglas, Arizona from Sacramento, and back up. Well, on the return trip, there were 5 B-25s with 10 women and 5 instructors, and on the way back we had to stop and spend the night because the weather was so bad we couldn't get through. And the next morning, we went into the operations office and to get our clearances and get ready to go out, and here was this whole bunch of women and in flying suits and so on, and there was a bird colonel, a chicken colonel in there, and he was filing his flight plan, and he said to Bailey, who's about that high, you know, and at that point weighed about 110 pounds, what are all these women doing in here? And she said, oh, and she has great big blue eyes and the blonde hair, she's cute as a button. She said, oh, we flew those B-25s in, and we're on our way to Sacramento. And he went up to the operation desk and slammed his briefcase down on the desk and said, Sergeant, give me my clearance. He went out, and we all watched him because you could see he was very angry. We all went out and watched him, and he got into a BT that was parked under the wing of one of our 25s.
I was ferrying an old SBD from Memphis, Tennessee, down to Pensacola, and on the way back, I landed in Jackson, Mississippi, for some fuel, and I was taxiing into the runway, and the tower called me and said, "Navy, so forth, please hold while these Mustangs come in." So I held there, and here comes 4 brand new, beautiful, sleek Mustangs snarling up the runway. And they parked there, and I parked there beside them at a respectful distance. And who got out of these but 4 very nice-looking young ladies, which surprised me greatly. So it was a thrill to me to see the airplanes to begin with, and to see who flew them in there was impressive.
I started in and landed. And then I called the tower for instructions to get to the ramp. And they came back and they said they couldn't see me. Make an S-turn. So I S-turned. They still couldn't see me. Flash your landing lights. Flash my landing lights. They still couldn't see me. And all at once, the tower I was talking to said, "This is North Island Tower. We cannot find you, VT, whatever the number was." I wasn't talking to Gardner at all. It was a radio skip. I was talking to North Island Tower, Naval Station in San Diego. Here I was in Gardner Field and Gardner Field Tower was going crazy. They didn't know what in the world this plane was doing. All this S-turning and blinking. They finally were sending a Jeep out to try to find out what was the matter.
We were absolutely devastated when we were closed down. The war was still very, very heavy in the Pacific and in Europe. I had brothers and brothers-in-laws in both theaters. We were furious that American Airlines said they'd be happy to have us as stewardesses. It made us mad as heck. And I thought, where am I going to go? Where am I going to find a flying job? And I really wanted one, and I was not able to find one.
Most people still don't know what women did in World War II and in the other services, but about the flying. They'd never heard of us. And then we were just deactivated because of Congress, several men in Congress.
No, I went to Chansport and tried to get a job as a test pilot for them. And they laughed. They thought that was real funny. You know, a woman pilot, you gotta be kidding.
Because we weren't afraid of anything. You know, there's nothing that could daunt you. You're just you could do it.